Welcome to the Solid Verbal.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
I've heard so many players say, well, I want to be happy. You want to be happy for a day? Eat a steak.
It's that woo woo.
And now, Dan and Ty.
Welcome back to the Solid Verbal Boys and Girls. My name is Ty Hildenbrandt, joining me as always, and actually seated directly to my left.
Yeah.
The man, the myth, Dan Rubenstein. Sir, how are you?
Life is good. You came all the way to my apartment. We're in Brooklyn right now to record because we're double recording. So by the time you listen to this, the other episode where we are recording is going to be up or will be up soon.
I believe that's
shortly.
Right. Yeah.
We're recording in New York, one, because we like each other. We like hanging out. We're pals. And two, we're recording our 90s internet and computers completely in 1000% off-topic show with Bill Barnwell.
That's right.
After we record this.
That's right.
So we're knocking at least two shows out in one sitting. And life is good. We're doing Pac-12 South.
Pac-12 South,
and the Mountain West, I believe. I do like that there's a West in Mountain. That's fun. It sounds like you're stuttering.
It's not quite Legends and Leaders fun,
no,
but it's
no.
in the same vein.
But yes, I'm excited to get out to the West Coast. I have a lot of Pac-12 South thoughts. It is a division that has gone through some changes recently, both for the better and for the more comical and mysterious. So I'm happy. I'm getting a little hungry.
Yeah,
we're gonna eat soon.
It's getting to be that time of day, but
I'm ready. I have a lot of thoughts. This was my initial thought because I like to think about the divisions. We talked about Fatlantic. We talked about the Southeastern Conference East in terms of the missing Olsen twin. Sure. Not missing, but other Olsen twin. I in my mind, I was trying to think about what the Pac-12 South represents to me, and I was just cycling through Mike Tyson's punch-out opponents.
Okay.
Because there is that clear hierarchy.
Sure.
Of Mike Tyson was AKA Mr. Dream.
That's right.
I want to say if the game didn't have the license for him. But there's a path to beating Mr. Dream / Mike Tyson. And so I could only get as far as saying, I think Khalil Tate is Don Flamenco.
Don Flamenco, yeah.
Just that one huge uppercut. I don't know what else Arizona has that scares me, but that uppercut is quite the uppercut.
With their defense being King Hippo, I'm assuming
yes.
Is where you're going with
the defense
this,
is
right?
King
Punch
Hippo.
Them in the stomach, the pants fall down.
If you wanted to talk me into Khalil Tate being Great Tiger with that that quick disappearing act kind of thing,
yeah,
the morphing around that I could be on board with.
The disappearing act was a little challenging.
Yes,
for Great Tiger. Yeah.
But that big thing to me is everybody's not one note, but there is that comical vulnerability that everybody I think in the South has, maybe outside of USC.
Chip Kelly with the Soda Popinski tan.
Oh, there is a lot of Soda Popinski.
There's a little bit
Kelly.
in there, right?
Yeah, there is.
Well, welcome back to the show.
Yeah.
Don't forget you can get in on our live show action if you're out in the Chicagoland area. Again, yes. August the 11th at 7 p.m. Central Daylight Time. We'll be going for about 2 hours, after which we're going to hang out at a bar, see what happens with 1.5 Drink Dan.
# Tenders with Ty.
That's right. If you want to get in on the action, tickets are still available. You can go to solidverbaltickets.com. That'll redirect you to the ticket buying site. Again, at Chicago's historic Vidum Theater, August the 11th. If you're going to be around, or if you've got friends that are around that just like college football, you don't have to be a listener to the show. We're going to do our best to put a show together that works for everybody. Even if you're just a low-level college football fan, want to see what this is all about.
Fair.
It'll be a fun night. Check us out. You can find all the relevant information, again, solidverbaltickets.com, as well as our Facebook page, our Twitter account, our Instagram account, and, of course, by subscribing to our newsletter, which you can find at solidverbal.com or by going to that Facebook page. So, as Dan mentioned, we got a lot to discuss here as it relates to the 6 teams of the Pac-12 South. We're also going to go through the Mountain West Western Division. And we are recording another show right after this. We'll have to talk out when we're going to post that Bill show.
Yes.
But we are going to post that show at some point, like we've been doing each and every year with Bill Barnwell in the latter stages of July. First, we did emo. Last year, we did the big one where we talked about 90s sports video games.
Yep.
This year, it's going to be broader, all things 90s internet, which is, I think, a real wheelhouse topic for all of us.
Maybe we'll just focus on 90s internet and how it affected our love life. Maybe that's the direction. Probably not, though. But that'll be an element. Anyway, I'm excited to talk Pac-12.
Pac-12 South
Yes.
is where we're starting. Now, you are the resident Pac-12 aficionado between the two of us.
I'm the only Pac-12 fan in New York. I'm the only living Pac-12 boy in New York.
You are an endangered species.
Yeah.
You are from this part of the country.
Mm-hmm.
So you really, truly understand what this signifies in that area of the country.
It just means a little bit.
A little
bit.
bit.
Yeah.
People have better things to do.
Yeah, there's a lot to do on the West Coast.
As you look at the Pac-12 South, what is your general broad overview? What's your takeaway?
Soda Popinski.
Right.
That there is this weird cycle, because I remember having a very similar conversation when I went to Pac-12 Media Days in 2012, and there was the infusion of Rich Rod at Arizona. The addition, I think Todd Graham was his first, Mike Leach was super new to the conference. And there was this idea of like, oh my God, we have these new coaches doing exciting new things. And maybe this will be the spark that propels the Pac-12 into a broader national conversation. Now we have Herm Edwards doing it, which is a little different context-wise than Todd Graham. It was a lot of like, Todd Graham's going to stay here at Arizona State. There was that big offensive mastermind in Rich Rodriguez coming to Arizona. Now there's the big offensive mastermind Kevin Sumlin coming to Arizona. Jim Mora was relatively new and was like, NFL experience didn't really work out, but he's at UCLA. Chip Kelly, NFL experience didn't really work out, but he's at UCLA. So there is kind of a cyclical nature to how we talk about the Pac-12 and a rising attention across the country. But because there are so many unknown factors in the Pac-12 South, because of new quarterback at USC, new coach at UCLA, super fun quarterback at Arizona, but new coach, Arizona State, tearing it down to the studs and starting over with an ESPN guy.
Totally normal.
And so that one thing that isn't cyclical is Kyle Whittingham's just hanging out,
just chilling,
developing big dudes,
just collecting a paycheck, winning 8-9 games a year, going to a bowl.
So there's sort of like the more things change, the more things stay the same.
Yeah, I looked at it, and it's so different to me because Sam Darnold's gone now, and USC still has a ton of talent. USC is clearly, I'm sure you would agree, the top dog in the Pac-12 South. But it's a much different setup this year. We're not in this vein where we're going to be talking about USC as, I don't think, a national championship contender.
Right.
We're used to USC being that top 10 team with a lot of potential, a lot of promise. The potential's still there, in fairness, but I don't know if anyone's talking about USC as like a 10-win team right now. It could happen, for sure. It could happen. They've got talent. But that, to me, it really echoes on down through the rest of that division where we just don't really know what to expect. There's some new coaches. There's some exciting players. Utah just hanging out will probably win their fair share of games, but a much different
also that game
side.
is in Salt Lake City, the Utah USC game, which already
we know what's going to happen already.
It's terrifying.
But
27-26 Utah.
My point is that it's just like a lot lower stress this year than I think I've been accustomed to as we've been previewing these.
Yes, USC specifically, there always seems like, they're replacing their entire defense, or they're replacing their entire offensive line, or they only have 52 scholarships. Everything is always, it seems to be like dramatic offseason. Steve Sarkisian's fired in the middle of the season. Lane Kiffin is, let go. There's always like this dramatic element to USC. And in the way that we say, the ACC joke-free, USC is drama-free. For the most part, like, it doesn't seem like there's, there was not crazy coaching changes there. Quarterback, obviously, Sam Darnold leaves early, but the quarterback depth is pretty good, at least with decent talent at quarterback. Just don't screw up. Give the ball to some talented playmakers behind a good offensive line. USC's offense should once again be a top 15, 20 offense. Yeah. And then, they lose Tyson Helton to Tennessee, but it was, T. Martin's.
But they kept Clay.
They kept Clay.
Don't forget
Clay. And so, there's Clay and Clancy. But keeping Clay is a big deal. And then on defense up front, a lot of these guys have rotated in. There's a ton of blue chip talent, which is the least surprising thing about USC. And they were a little bit shaky at times against the run last year, but look at their schedule. Who's running all over USC this year? Who is taking advantage of, no Rasheem Green, Uchenna and Nwosu was one of the great underrated defensive players last year, and he's gone. It's super disruptive, but you'll see. I don't believe Washington State's going to run a ton. They go to Stanford. That's going to be a mess. That's going to be tough to stop Bryce Love for 4 quarters. But Colorado, Utah, I think Zach Moss is fine. Arizona State, I'm not terribly worried about. Oregon State, Cal, UCLA. Notre Dame will probably have a decent running game by the time that runs along.
And a defense that will test this USC offense for sure. But I think you're right. And given the talent, given the fact that the schedule is, for the most part, pretty good.
Yeah, it's a tougher, going to Stanford, to Texas early is a quick wake-up call for whoever starts at quarterback. But yeah.
Beyond that, not bad.
Yeah.
It's workable, and it'll certainly give them a chance, enough runway to put together a good campaign. Far and away, the top team in the Pac-12 South.
Yes.
No other way you can look at it.
So here's the quarterback issue. Obviously, people have, and we are included in that, JT Daniels declared recommit. What am I looking for? He enters USC a year early. He reclassifies.
Sure.
And has the clear highest ceiling, most talent, would have been the number 1 quarterback, perhaps, or probably like a top 4 quarterback in last year's class as a junior. It was a pretty talented class with Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, but it's clear that he will eventually be the starting quarterback sooner rather than later. If he doesn't start out, I assume it could be Matt Fink or Jack Sears. Probably Fink has a little bit more experience in the offense.
Now listen, Matt Sink was 6 for
Fink,
9 passing.
F.
Yeah, Fink.
Fink.
So what did I say?
I think Sink.
No, Matt Fink, excuse me.
Yeah.
6 for 9 passing last year.
That's true. Nice.
Just throwing that out there.
6 for 9. So the only real concern I would have about USC is USC. How do they shoot themselves in the foot in that one dumb game? They're like, not to say Utah is disappointing, but they barely get by Utah last year at home, I believe. And I think it was Troy Williams starting, not Tyler Huntley. They beat him by a point. And it's not, can USC make its way through the Pac-12 unscathed or whatever, because they're probably going to win the Pac-12 if it's not for Washington. Who I don't believe they play this year, which is nice. It's how will USC acquit itself nationally? It's what do they look like against what should be a pretty good Texas defense? And if they win the Pac-12 and either end up in the playoff or end up in a New Year's bowl game, what do they look like after looking abysmal against Ohio State this past bowl game and abysmal against Alabama the year before?
So here's my big operative question about USC.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the depth chart now. I'm looking at what USC brings back on both sides of the football.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty good up front, at least on offense.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
4 or 5 linemen are back. That's a good foundation.
Mm-hmm.
There are questions about the quarterback position. Whoever that quarterback ends up being will probably be just fine.
Yes.
In the grand scheme of things. They've got a good running back in Stephen Carr, maybe not quite as explosive as what they've had, but still versatile, serviceable. He will give them numbers. And they're fine out wide, as they always are at USC. The offense will be far and away better than most other offenses, not just in the conference, but probably in the country, because they're USC. My questions are on defense. Up front, a little new.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what are we dealing with up front? We'll have to figure that out as we go along.
Yep.
But the back half of that defense is actually in pretty good shape.
Yep.
So even though we're not talking as much about USC this year, and maybe that's because of the quarterback position, I don't know. This is still a team that's in a really good spot. They're going to win a bunch of games, and they're going to get better as the year goes on, which is what scares me as a Notre Dame fan, knowing that the last game of the year is against Notre Dame at home.
Right.
What will USC look like by that point in the season? That's terrifying to me. It's always terrifying to me when the last game of the year is in LA against USC, but particularly this team, which feels like it has a lot of room to grow.
Mm-hmm.
That's a scary proposition.
Here's the great news, again, if you're a USC fan, because everything is pretty much great news. There's a good chance you live in Southern California or environs, and you're recruiting super well. You have consistency. When you look at the quarterbacks that they will face this year, I can go through the quarterback situations, and you can tell me if you're scared about any of these guys throwing downfield. And USC has gotten after the quarterback pretty well, and they return a bunch in the secondary. I know Jack Jones was kicked off the team, but other than that, they've recruited super well there. UNLV and Armani Rogers, he's fun. He's a dual threat. He's not beating anybody deep consistently. Stanford's pass game, I don't think has been anywhere near where it should be. Texas, I don't think they're beating a ton of teams deep, especially early on. I like the receivers, but I don't think they have that.
The deep play
talent.
was not a strength for Texas.
No. Not at all. Washington State's breaking a new quarterback situation. Khalil Tate, yes, because there's that threat of run. He should be able to pop some. Steven Montez, Tyler Huntley, they've struggled throwing downfield a lot recently. Arizona State and Manny Wilkins to N'Keal Harry. Yeah, I'm scared of that.
That's fun.
I'm scared of that. Oregon State, no. Cal, at this point, no, especially no Demetrius Robertson. UCLA.
Wilton Spate.
Wilton Spate.
Wilton Spate, baby.
Not necessarily. And Brandon Wimbush, Ian Book, right now, it's hard to say you should be threatened downfield consistently.
I prefer dual threat.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So that's good news.
Say.
So I think it's very difficult to imagine USC losing losing more than 2.5 games.
I was gonna say 2-3 games.
Yeah. And that's, if everything goes wrong, I think they go 9-3.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
So 10-2 feels about 10-2, 11-1 even, if quarterback is simply pretty good.
Yeah. Okay, that's USC again, 10-2 a year ago, starting over in some respects this year, but still in a very, very good spot as we enter.
Healthy Porter Gustin too. He'll get after it.
As we enter 2018, sure. All right, where do we want to go next then after USC? It feels to me like the natural logic would take us to Utah.
Colorado. Oh, okay.
Let's go to Utah.
Yeah, let's go to Utah. Let's talk big heavies.
Utah. All right.
Big uglies.
Quarterback situation is not bad.
No.
I feel like I say that every year. It's not bad. It's an underhanded compliment, if you want to call it that, but it's not bad, right? Tyler Huntley was hurt a little bit last year.
Correct.
When he played and when he got things going in a good direction, it was pretty serviceable.
He started the season really well.
Started the season
in
well,
an encouraging way. Right.
When he came back later in the year, it was a lot better. But Utah, I think, has a good quarterback situation.
Yes.
Better than a lot of other teams in the country. So I'm fine with Utah and where they stand with Huntley.
There's a lot of promise in a way that I don't think has existed in Salt Lake City. Not just because of Huntley and the way he started out last year. He had the huge game. I think it was San Jose State. It wasn't against huge opponents, but he had a ridiculous game against UCLA and I think was good against, I want to say, Wazoo. So there's a lot of promise there. He struggled against Oregon, but the reason I say promise is if anything happens with him, if he's not cautious in the way because he is a dual threat like he should have been last year, Jack Tuttle is the probable backup. And Jack Tuttle is somebody, I think he committed to Kyle Whittingham early at quarterback, blue chip from Southern California, and just turned away everybody to stick with Utah. And I think a lot of people are genuinely not surprised, but impressed that Utah was able to reel in a high level quarterback talent in a way that they really haven't. For sure. So quarterback situation is great. They replace a lot on defense, but I'm not going to worry about Utah on defense. I'm just not.
No, you never worry about Utah on defense because, as you said, Kyle Whittingham is just hanging out there, finding a way to put together a beast defensive line like he does every year,
right?
And hold teams down. I'm really curious about this offense. Now, I'm not enamored with their situation out wide. However, they do have Zach Moss, a returning running back, and a pretty experienced offensive line that he can run behind.
Yep.
Combine that with a good quarterback, I think, all things considered.
Yep.
Utah's in a pretty good spot offensively, and that's not something I'm used to saying. Like we usually don't have a lot of nice things to say about Utah.
Correct.
As an offense. Maybe they've got one or two studs that we're going to follow throughout the course of a year. But I don't know the last time I really felt this way about a Utah team, just looking at it and being like, yep, they'll be able to move the ball.
Yeah, I'm still not convinced because of receiver. I know they get Britton Covey back, and that's a big deal. He took his LDS mission, but the game changers at receiver just don't seem to be there for Utah. They bring in Darren Carrington last year as a grad transfer, and that was a nice addition, but it was not indicative of where Utah's offense is going because I don't think they have the talent at receiver yet. But if Jack Tuttle, Tyler Huntley is really good this year, maybe that changes. And I like their offensive coordinator a lot. Troy Taylor came to them from Eastern Washington, running the Bo Baldwin wide open system. So I think that's still a move that's going to pay dividends. I love Bradley Anae. He is one of the better and more underrated defensive linemen in the country. He is this year's whoever, Hunter Dimick, whatever.
Starlo Tulele.
Right, exactly. He is that guy. I think he led them in sacks last year. In any case, Utah and defense is one of those things. There's very few unworryables, definitely not a word in college football where you're like, yeah, they're going to get it figured out pretty quickly. Schedule's pretty nice. They go to NIU, which it feels trappy. It feels dangerous, with an offense that's not like dominant to go against that defense. I'm not writing in a win there, but I think they miss Washington, I believe, right?
They
get Washington early
3.
after NIU.
See, here's the thing. Here's the thing. So
I don't love their schedule.
Well, I agree with you that the non-conference schedule is okay.
Yeah.
All right, at Northern Illinois, maybe a little trappy. Weber State, the Thursday to start the season.
They finished with the Holy War.
They've got the Holy War, which is always kind of a tricky game.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't really draw the correct straw in terms of who they're getting from the North.
Yes, that's true.
Because I see Washington on here.
Mm-hmm.
I see Stanford, a road game against Stanford on here. I see Oregon late in the year on here. Their Pac-12 North component of the schedule is not doing them any favors.
No, it looks like they miss Oregon State and Cal, which is not who you want to miss.
No, not generally. No.
Not who you want to miss. So yes, their schedule is rough. I'm not thinking BYU is going to be tricky.
Probably not.
Probably not. Defensively, they may improve, but I'm not fully sold on that. The big thing is Utah consistency. It's tough to go to Salt Lake City. This is something we try to say every year. It's a loud place. It's trappy. It's at altitude. Utah's in that zone where teams like USC or Oregon or whoever think they can just walk in and be more talented than, and then they just sort of get whooped up a little bit. And so I am looking forward to watching Utah. It's hard to see them with this schedule winning more than 7 or 8.
That being said, if you replay each of our last 10 years of previewing teams, it's the exact same.
Yeah.
It's the exact same because I'm going through, I'm the same exercise. I'm counting out, all right, win. I get to 7 that I feel pretty good about.
Mm-hmm.
In my head, that means 9.
Yeah.
For Utah and Kyle, that always means at least 8, maybe 9.
Yeah, Utah's sort of puts the no in November, though, where you get super excited about them through Halloween, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, yeah, they're 7-5, 8-4. Like, it's just, I don't think they have the depth necessarily. I don't think they have the special players on offense.
Depth will be the issue.
Yeah, the special players on offense, I think, is going to be the limiting factor.
All right. From Utah, then, let's go to Arizona.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about a special offensive player.
Let's talk about a special offensive player. You and I had an informal discussion before we hit record.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the best player in the Pac-12 South?
Yeah, it's probably Khalil Tate, but there are other people that I could see making a case by, like N'Keal Harry might be the single most talented player at his position, not just in the conference, but in the country. There are players like that. Chase Lucas, also at Arizona State. Bradley Anae at Utah. We'll see what JT Daniels or Stephen Carr or any of the guys on USC, Porter Gustin, bring to the table. UCLA, I don't see a special player right now. I am curious, but yes, I think Khalil Tate right now is
he's got to be
the no-brainer pure talent.
He's at least your no-brainer Heisman candidate. He
had games averaging 15 yards per carry. Like, it was stupid.
Right, the Pac-12.
Right.
So in and of himself, Khalil Tate makes Arizona interesting. Mm-hmm. There are other components that make Arizona even more interesting. They've got a new coach. Rich Rod was unceremoniously relieved of duties.
Yes, late in the process.
And they go to Kevin Sumlin.
Mm-hmm.
Is Kevin Sumlin a different coach than Rich Rodriguez?
I hope so.
I mean, they're different, physically different people.
Yeah.
But it feels like mostly the same kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Our persistent question on this show, since they announced that he was going to be the guy, is how much different is this really going to be? How much different will this team look from what we're used to seeing now the last couple of years under Rich Rodriguez?
So someone brings in coordinators he's either worked with as recently as last year or recently, as in a few years ago, Marcel Yates. He retains from Rich Rod's staff as defensive coordinator running the 4-2-5. He had success with
Is that a good thing?
I think the talent level on Arizona's defense has been super disappointing. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's up to par as for competing for the Pac-12 South recently. They had a couple years, you remember Scooby Wright destroying worlds, running that sort of fun, interesting, unpredictable 3-3-5 under Jeff Castile, where that defense was a nice complement to the offense. They were fast and unpredictable. Defense, I like Colin Schooler, who is probably a freshman All-American last year, and I think his older brother plays, I think older brother is at Oregon. And I really like the idea of Arizona having a fast, fun defense with what they should be able to recruit from Southern California, but the talent isn't there yet, especially up front. The good news is even if they're giving up 38, 41 points,
They're probably scoring 45
they
points.
can drop a bunch of those digits. And it's Khalil Tate. He got beat up near the end of last season and wasn't as effective, but effective Khalil Tate is about the scariest thing in the country outside of Bryce Love, maybe.
We have seen Kevin Sumlin in a situation fairly recently where he had a dynamic quarterback.
Yeah.
And he just rode that dynamic quarterback.
That's going to be the talking point, is can Kevin Sumlin do for Khalil Tate what he did for Johnny Manziel? He
was successful for a finite moment in time. He was very successful having a dynamic player at quarterback who could run, who could throw, who could just make things interesting.
Yeah.
And so as Khalil Tate goes, so will Arizona's offense, probably so will Arizona's team. And probably will, I think, this new look Kevin Sumlin era, given where Texas A&M was when he left.
Here would be my concern about that line of talking. Speaking. I don't know English. Johnny Manziel had an NFL offensive line in front of him. Arizona does not have that in front of. They're fine, but they don't have that in front of Khalil Tate.
Whatever receiver, Mike Evans.
Ryan Swope. Like, there was serious talent surrounding Johnny Manziel, which is not to say that it wasn't Johnny Manziel doing it, but it was Johnny Manziel taking advantage and being put into a situation to maximize his own talent. I like the Arizona receivers. There's no Mike Evans. I like Sean Brown and Tony Allison.
Right.
They're not quite Mike Evans. I like J.J. Taylor a whole bunch. He's one of my, just in terms of watching a player, J.J. Taylor, he's tiny. He's got one of the most ridiculous first steps of any running backs in the country. He's going to get beat up. He's
5'6", 180, something like that?
And that's might be soaking wet.
Yeah.
That's sort of a concern of mine. So that almost makes what Khalil Tate's ceiling more impressive to me, because he is that one-man wrecking crew. We saw it against Wazoo last year. We saw it against Colorado and UCLA and USC, putting up stupid numbers. He is a gamer. I'm not sold on the Johnny Manziel progression of just absurd every week.
Yeah, no, I don't mean to draw a direct comparison between the two.
No, but it's reasonable.
They're different players, but Kevin Sumlin's been in that situation where he's had a really dynamic player at quarterback, and he was able to use that to his advantage. It actually kind of fell apart when Manziel left.
Yeah.
He needs that guy at quarterback. Just to remind people of Khalil Tate's numbers from a year ago.
Please, I'm ready.
This has no real bearing on what happens in 2018, but just a tip of the hat to Khalil Tate.
Oh my God.
1,530 yards on the ground with 12 touchdowns.
And he didn't start the season he didn't start the season playing quarterback. Brandon Dawkins did.
And 62% of his passes for completion, 1,591 yards passing and 14 touchdowns. 9 interceptions they'll need to improve upon.
Sure.
All right. But still a dynamic player, a really fun player to watch. If you care, as we've been framing this out on all of our previous shows, if you are looking for a reason to care, just broadly about the Pac-12 South, Khalil Tate's a pretty big one.
Yeah.
Get used to that name if you're not already familiar with it.
Absolutely. Stay up late for Khalil Tate. That's my bumper sticker.
I like
for
that.
Arizona.
Very good.
Yeah, late for Tate. I don't have too much to add other than it worries me that whenever you have to say, oh, the defense has to improve to below average, that is troubling because they were abysmal last year. And
well, let me ask you this question, because on the last show when we talked about the Big 12, we were throwing out numbers. Top 47 for Oklahoma would be good. Top 45 for someone else. Top 68. Top what would be good for Arizona, given this offense?
I think they finished around 95th in S&P Plus defensively. So you're asking me what the defense needs to finish to give the offense enough runway to win games more often than not, because they feel 6-6, 7-5ish to me. They need to field a top 70 defense.
I was going to say 70, 75, somewhere in that range.
And schedule wise, quarterback wise, I know they miss. Do they miss Washington?
Yeah.
They do miss Washington.
They miss Washington.
So that's nice. But they do have Oregon. They have Oregon at home. They go to Wazoo, BYU, Houston, Southern Utah, Oregon State and USC to start out the season. At Houston, I would be pretty worried about. That was a close game recently. And I really like De'Aaron King at quarterback. If we're talking about a special quarterback or potentially a special quarterback who can take advantage of a lackluster defense, De'Aaron King may be that name. And otherwise, road trip wise, going to Oregon State, to Wazoo, to UCLA. Going to UCLA is not all that difficult. It just isn't. The schedule is fine. It's spaced out pretty well. If we're being honest, if Tate gets hurt, to me, it's too much. I know people are talking about Arizona as a wild card in the South. It's too much on his shoulders.
Yeah, it's true.
And even if, Johnny Manziel got hurt, there were other options for Texas A&M. And Noel Mazzone, you're always going to get above average offense, but that's literally always above average. And that's for better or worse.
Well, as Khalil Tate goes, so will Arizona.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say. Let's stay in the state of Arizona.
And
let's talk about ASU.
Mm-hmm.
ASU went 7-5 a year ago. They have also changed out their coaching situation.
Mm-hmm.
I think you described it accurately at the top of the show, where they've ripped it down to the studs and entrusted it now, the rebuild, to a guy from ESPN.
Yep.
Herm Edwards, who came in, was a bit confused in his introductory press conference.
I don't know what Herm is like. I don't know what Herm is doing in that. Like, I don't know what he's saying, but I don't know what. Like, is he crazy or crazy like a fox?
Yeah,
that's the thing, right? Is he just dressing up obvious things in a weird way to just have fun with it? I don't know. I'm not ready to say what Herm Edwards is doing is all that different or weird. He's just dressing it up differently.
If Herm Edwards would have left his post at ESPN and announced to the world, maybe on Twitter, I am going to go on a motivational speaking tour.
I would scroll past it on Twitter without thinking, because of course,
right? Yeah. He's a very, very cogent, powerful, influential speaker. He grabs your attention.
Sure.
That has to stand for something, maybe a very little thing, as it relates to coaching. I don't know what else he's doing here, though. I think he could probably motivate the troops. His strategy of upending the existing model and starting anew at ASU is, maybe it's the most revolutionary thing to hit college football in a decade.
I think he's just describing something that already exists in a different way.
He's pulling an Apple is what he's doing.
Yes, absolutely. He's making a big deal over removing the headphone jack when other places had removed the headphone jack already. But with his platform and going on TV all the time and, having that big personality, it feels different and wacky, when in fact he's probably just talking about it in a slightly different way. Here's the great news for Herm Edwards. He does have an offensive and defensive coordinator after losing both his offensive and defensive coordinator after saying they were going to stay. So that would have been Phil Bennett and the new coach at Louisiana, Billy Napier.
Right.
So I apologize to Louisiana, great news. Manny Wilkins is an underrated national quarterback, probably a top 15 quarterback in the country, 20 quarterback in the country. Really good. The running game I don't think is going to be all that great, but I really like the combination of N'Keal Harry and Kyle Williams. I think that's one of the better duos in the country, mostly because of N'Keal Harry, but also because it gives them options downfield. The line in front of them, I think, is pretty good. And Arizona State on the other side of the ball, I believe they're going to a 3-3-5, correct?
That's correct.
They're going to a 3-3-5, and they may have the single best cover corner in the conference in Chase Lucas. So in terms of pieces, in terms of what Herm Edwards can do, and we're not necessarily only talking about this season, going out and recruiting, look what we helped do, whether it's we or the previous staff, whatever, look what Chase Lucas has been able to do and thrive with at Arizona State and Tempe. Look at what we're able to develop. Look at Manny Wilkins is, by all accounts, has a great story, a great dude, whatever, and he's thriving in Tempe. So there are, down to those studs, there are studs.
There are actual studs.
Yeah.
And to your point, just to build upon what you said about the receiving corps, it's not just us that feels good about that receiving core. They were so confident in their own receiving core. Jalen Harvey, who was their third leading receiver, was moved to defense. That's how good they feel about their depth at the
I thought you were trying to say Jalen Strong, and I was ready.
I'm getting all mixed up here, but
no, you're right.
Jalen Strong would be a great addition as well.
Wonderful.
But this is a different one, and they've moved him to defense because they feel pretty good about their depth out at the wide receiver spot. So this is as you said, a team being ripped down to the studs with at least studs on which they can build something moving forward now.
Tricky September.
Yeah.
Michigan State, San Diego State, and Washington are 3 of the best 20 defenses in the country. And they have them in a row, 2 of which on the road. San Diego State just relaxes and beats Pac-12 teams. That's what San Diego State does.
Right.
Michigan State should have a very good defense. Washington should have an excellent defense. Beyond that, though, it's still pretty tricky. They have Stanford and USC in sort of consecutive weeks.
Let's look at the back half of this freaking schedule.
Woof. City.
Look at this schedule.
It's
They
not
get
great.
a bye week
Mhm.
on October 13th.
Yeah.
What will you do on your bye week, Dan? Just chill, maybe play some video games, go for a run.
I mean, Phoenix and Tempe finally becomes like inhabitable on
Right,
October
exactly.
13th.
But then after that, Stanford, by the way, also off a bye week,
Mm-hmm.
going into their matchup on a Thursday night in Tempe, October 18th.
Yeah.
The following week at USC. The week after that, back home against Utah.
Mm-hmm.
After that, kind of an awesome letdown look ahead sandwich, or just a regular sandwich spot at home November 10th against UCLA.
Who may be pretty feisty
They might
by then.
They might figure it out by then.
Wilton
Right?
Spate, man. Come on. Here we go.
And then ASU closes out the season on the road, back to back, at Oregon, at Arizona, rivalry game.
Yep.
That's a tough freaking schedule.
And that's going to be a pretty good Oregon defense a week before Khalil Tate.
The over-under for wins for ASU is 4.5.
Yeah, I would say it's safe to say they're not going to a bowl. I can't see it. I just can't. It's too much.
If they beat UTSA, that's 1.
Mm-hmm.
Not beating Michigan State.
Yeah, it's at home. It's in Tempe.
I don't think they're beating them that early.
Michigan State is traditionally under Mark D'Antonio a grower rather than a shower.
Fair.
You know what I'm talking about.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But I count these up here. Getting to 5 is tough. I'd be inclined to go under.
Okay, so they could San Diego State. I think they're hiring their new defensive coordinator was last year's San Diego State defensive coordinator. So maybe there's like a little bit of an edge there. So if we give UTSA on the road, it's not terribly difficult to play at San Diego State. 1, 2, Oregon State, Colorado, and they sneak either Utah, UCLA, or Arizona. Maybe that's 5. I have them at 5 and 7.
Yeah, so no bowl.
I don't.
No,
I don't have
we're in
Arizona State
agreement
going
here.
to a
No bowl. I'm gonna go 3 and 9, 4 and 8.
Wow. Okay.
4 and 8. How do you get to 5? 5's a tough ask.
So if my level of success is generally determined by the combination of quarterback and defense, and I think they have a good quarterback, and the defense is probably below average. So that doesn't feel like a bowl to me.
Not a bowl team.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to UCLA. Let's get this cat out of the bag here.
Mhm.
A lot of news in the offseason, right? Jim Mora gone.
$12 million.
Who will UCLA turn to fill that void,
Mhm.
to take the program forward?
Right. Carl Durrell.
It is
Once
our
again.
boy, Charles Chip Kelly.
Charles Chip Kelly.
Have we agreed that we will refer to him as Charles Chip Kelly all season long?
I think we have to. We've made the commitment in June. So
We just steer into it at this
you
point?
don't have to. I've
been the one saying it.
I know, but I'm the bigger jackass of the two of us. So
Right.
and I'm more committed to beating a dead horse than I will say anybody that has ever had or been on a college football podcast. So
Okay.
I like to hire a lot. I like Charles Chip Kelly and what his ceiling should be in Westwood. He will recruit better, but I think in a similar fashion. Like I wouldn't be surprised if UCLA brought in that level of 3-4 star rather than 4-5 star, like some of Jim Mora's classes, because I think they're going to be more judicious. And they, Chip Kelly is that reputation with his staff, like taking a lot of time to do background research on recruits and stuff like that. So I think he's going to find quote unquote his guys.
Sure.
I know Chris Peterson has the OKG, our kind of guys,
Nah, right.
OKGs guys. Chip Kelly has that very similar mindset. So I think UCLA is going to populate that roster really well in the long term. But we're talking about this year.
And for this year, I think the questions that I have about UCLA are more about where they're headed in the future. I think if you're a UCLA fan, maybe if you're a USC fan wondering what UCLA is going to be like in conference, in your side of the conference a couple of years from now, what you want to watch for at the end of this year is, does it look like they're building towards something? Does it look like they're headed in a positive direction? It will take them a couple years to implement this system, to bring in our kind of guys, if you want to call them that. For the short term, though, what kind of a canvas do we have here? And furthermore, what will that system look like? This has been our question all throughout the offseason. We know what Chip Kelly looked like at Oregon. We know what he looked like in the NFL. What kind of system now will we see at UCLA? Will it be such where he's trying to use his personnel to the best of their ability and build a system around them? Or will it be truly, we're starting from scratch, we're going back to what I know, and we're going to recruit guys and try and apply guys that fit my system?
So Chip Kelly has always been let's figure out what works with what we have. He has always been that way. That's why he initially went to that system at New Hampshire and brought it to Oregon. The important thing, if you're a UCLA fan, and it's going to be kind of a rough season, even winning games, it's not going to be pretty because I don't think the talent level is fully there. We talked to Bruce Feldman about this earlier in the summer. Right. He went to some practices, and up close, it's just like they have a little bit of a ways to go. The great news, if you're a UCLA fan, and I tell this to you as an Oregon fan who has spent a lot of time watching Chip Kelly work his magic, Chip Kelly made a lot of decidedly non-NFL quarterbacks look really good.
Yeah, he did.
Right now, UCLA has a true freshman coming in, Thompson Robinson.
DTR, excuse me.
DTR. Devin Modster, who started a couple games last year and looked pretty good against Kansas State at times. When I say at times, it was good first half. It was a terrible second half. And Wilton Spate. Now, if we run through some of the names that I got to watch at Oregon. So Jeremiah Masoli, what NFL team is he playing for? What NFL team
I will
was he
look that up.
by?
Yeah.
He was kicked off of that team. Justin Roper, as a fifth string, shredded South Florida in the Sun Bowl and was totally serviceable. Justin Roper is not as talented as any of the people in the UCLA's quarterback room. Darren Thomas left a year early, was not a great move, but Marcus Mariota was coming in. Darren Thomas, arguably, after Marcus Mariota, Oregon's most successful quarterback ever. Haven't heard the name Darren Thomas in a long time. So the good news is Chip Kelly is going to put whoever starts at quarterback in a favorable position. The receivers are pretty good. I've been on the Theo Howard train forever. I don't know if he'll actually be good, but he has the talent and has the speed. I know they bring in Chase Cota from up in Oregon. He is like an Oregon legacy, and a big deal was made. He was a big-time recruit. So there is some talent at receiver. I don't love their offensive line. I like a couple of guys on defense, more in the back end. Darnay Holmes, Calabasas High.
Yep.
Should be a really good cover corner for UCLA. And we'll see with Jalen Phillips, came in with a lot of hype, but I am a huge fan of Jerry Azzanaro, their defensive coordinator, although he hasn't actually been a full-fledged defensive coordinator in a long time. I like their staff a lot. I like what's happening in Westwood. I am not positive, and we've talked about this before. This is a long-term thing. Is Chip Kelly 2009 Chip Kelly right now?
Yeah.
I hope so for UCLA's fans and entertainment fans' sake.
For sure.
But UCLA's schedule is tough.
Brutal. Oklahoma on the road week 2. That's not favorable.
Fresno State has maybe the best defense in the Mountain West.
Yeah.
I love their middle linebacker.
Let me read through this quick.
Yeah.
They open up against Cincinnati.
A quick preview. Their middle linebacker, Fresno State, I think Jeffrey Allison. Whoa. Okay, continue.
Next week at Oklahoma. Next week home against Fresno, then a bye. At Colorado, Washington, at Cal, Arizona, Utah on a Friday, at Oregon, at ASU, USC, and Stanford.
Woof. It just does not. There are no 2 weeks in there unless you want to, like, even Arizona and Utah both at home. You're still dealing with a lot in those 2 games.
UCLA will pull an upset on somebody.
Give me the team on the road that UCLA is most likely to be, will be a definite dog against that they'll upset.
It could be Arizona State.
You think? I don't think. Well, no. Okay, they're on the road against Arizona State. I don't know if they'll be a dog.
I don't know if they'll be a dog, but
yeah. No, I'm saying a clear, better situation. Is it Oregon?
No,
it's hard to.
No, it's not. I don't know if they're a dog against anyone else
on the road. So beat any of the teams. So like they could beat Utah. I think they could be a home dog against Utah.
They could beat Utah.
They could beat Utah. Okay.
Yeah. So transition year for UCLA. There's no harm in that. I think you look for reasons to be optimistic about next
that's
season.
Halloween week, by the way, Utah. So it's deeper into the season where they could have some rhythm and understanding.
All right. I'm not prepared to make a true prediction here on UCLA.
Okay.
Transition year.
Yeah.
I say that. Not a bowl team. Not with the schedule.
Yeah, I think they will be on that quest for 6 late. I think the conversation could be, they could end up being 5-6 after the USC game.
Yeah, like, if they beat Stanford at home this week. Oh, okay. Does Chip Kelly have a Stanford problem?
And now we've got about an hour's worth of Colorado to talk about, right? We have a lot to deep dive on the Montez Mobile.
Yeah. Are you on the Montez Mobile?
No, he feels like the most average Pac-12 quarterback, where it's just like, oh, he's going to be really good for a game.
Really average.
Yeah.
Steven Montez is the
like
starting
one
quarterback.
step forward, 1.5 steps back.
The backfield could be fun.
Yeah, Trevon McMillan, the Virginia Tech grad
Transfer. Yeah. They could be fun. It's a rough schedule.
It's very difficult for me to find a reason to care about Colorado.
Wow.
It's very this was one of the teams we've discussed, Power 5 teams. Colorado, if it's
not even for our boy Rich in Boulder, longtime listener.
Is he in Boulder?
I think.
I know he went to Colorado. It's tough because in previous years there were defensive players, especially that defensive backfield these past few years has been really, really good. They've populated the defense with a lot of junior college guys. They were god awful against the run last year. And it's hard to imagine this defense being at all scary in any sort of improved way from where they were last year. I know Jay McIntyre's been around at receiver for a while, Mike McIntyre's son, but I am finding difficulties.
Let me read a caption for you here.
Please.
Okay, so I gave away the game a little bit on the first preview show we did when we talked about the ACC Atlantic. Excuse me, Fatlantic.
Yes, thank you.
I did buy the Phil Steele magazine, the Real Steele dossier, as I've referred to it. And I like going through this because, say what you want. We've made fun of Phil Steele's website. And we've made fun of the publication, but there's a lot of stuff in here. I mean, he clearly puts the work in and the homework. And it is a great reference for idiots like Dan and I, who you're looking at a magazine right now too.
Yeah.
We need to try and
to be fair, it's home and garden.
Right.
To be fair, it is
absolutely true.
Yeah.
But we need to try and port as much of this into our brains as possible. What I do like about Phil Steele, he's always very optimistic. Right? He's not cutting anyone down in these publications. Here's what he says about the Colorado offense.
Oh no, Phil!
Here's
don't
what
hurt
he
him.
says. I'm going to read the last 2 sentences.
Okay.
I like the replacements at running back and wide receiver, while the offensive line should be more stable. Despite the losses, this unit underperformed last year and could actually top last year's numbers. Is that not the most optimistic spin on where Colorado's at offensively?
It also doesn't really say much.
No, it doesn't say anything.
No.
But it's optimistic is my point.
Yeah. And who's to say they underperformed? Like maybe they just performed. Maybe that's just...
I don't know. But it's kind of a compliment, kind of not. Kind of doesn't say much of anything. And it actually encapsulates how I feel for Colorado pretty accurately.
Yeah.
I just don't know.
I see 4 to 5 wins for Colorado this year. I think they take a step back.
Look at
as
this
a program.
schedule.
Yeah.
Look at this freaking schedule.
Yeah. They have
Colorado State,
that's
at
in Denver.
Nebraska, New Hampshire, UCLA, ASU, at USC, at Washington, homecoming against
So
Oregon
Colorado
State.
could beat Nebraska in week 2. They could.
Yeah, they could.
Nebraska might be starting a very inexperienced quarterback.
At Arizona, Washington State, Utah, at Cal, closing out the year. There might be 4 or 5 wins on
I'm
there.
not putting it past Colorado to throw some junk at the
Throw
beginning.
some junk?
Yeah. To throw some what's the old Mariners Jimmy
Moyer?
Yeah. I'm not throwing some McIntyre junk out the window as being a possibility. Like I could see them maybe winning the first 3, winning the last couple, and Oregon State. That gets you to 6. Right? So that would be Colorado State, Nebraska, New Hampshire. Last couple are Utah and going to Cal. Oregon State's a home game in the middle of the year. That gets them to bowl eligibility. That's some Jamie Moyerage.
Yeah.
I'm not
a big
ready
old
to say it
Ephus
won't
pitch
happen.
is what you're saying.
I'm saying some Necros, some Phil and Joe Necro, some Knuckles, some junk. That's what I'm saying. When they bring in like a shortstop in the 15th inning when they've used up all the relievers, and the shortstop randomly throws like a couple killer curveballs, I'm not putting it past Colorado because I think McIntyre is a good coach. I just talent-wise on both sides.
So does this make Mike McIntyre college football's Gabe Kapler? Sort of what I'm hearing here.
Did he come in and throw good pitches?
No, he brought guys in early this year to throw those pitches.
Yes, that's my answer. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're not too high on Colorado.
No,
I think Mike McIntyre, friend of the show, was
absolutely
on the
friend of the show.
Yeah.
But bowl game's gonna be a stretch.
All right. Shall we dance with the Mountain West Division?
Mountain West. Yes.
Fresno State, San Diego State, UNLV, Nevada, Hawaii, and San Jose State.
Mm-hmm. Here is some fantastic news. There are a number of fun offensive talents in this division. And there are only, of these 6 teams, 2 good defenses. So they're going to be numbers. They're going to be fun plays. I think Armani Rogers, not an accurate quarterback by any stretch, but in terms of, he's a big dude who strides, like he will put together, all of a sudden you'll be watching the bottom line on ESPN and it'll say UNLV QB Armani Rogers rushed for 214 yards. Like what? Who? Here's the great news about the actual good teams in this division. Fresno State returns a ton on their really good defense, although their coordinator from last year goes back to the CFL, which is not a phrase we say a lot about college
you really
football.
Don't usually say that, no.
But Jeff Tedford has done a very, very good job. Marcus McMaryion, the Oregon State transfer, has done a good job for them. San Diego State, if there is a name, it's Juwan Washington, who we mentioned way earlier in the spring. He could be, with a really good offensive line and experienced offensive line in front of him, the new Donnell Pumphrey, Rashad Penny, because San Diego State just keeps churning these
that
ridiculous
conveyor
backs.
Belt, baby. Right.
So Rocky Long defense, really good running back. San Diego State's going to threaten 10 wins again. They just are. It's one of the more underrated national consistent stories with San Diego State right now, is that they are just a threat for double digits every year with that combination. Beyond that, Nevada, I'm not buying. Hawaii, sorry, Nick Rolovich. No. San Jose State, nothing there for me.
Maybe interesting skill talent we have on our sheet here for San
Jose State. Yeah, they're healthier. San Jose State has fallen off since David Fales, Mike McIntyre.
That's a deep cut.
They've fallen off significantly. I'm not in on the Spartans. Although still, San Jose, the home of my favorite torta in America.
Your favorite torta.
And the name of the restaurant is the least creative and thus one of my favorite names for it's just a bakery that has really good tortas.
Mr. Torta.
It's literally called Mexico Bakery. And you should go there if you're in the San Jose area.
All right. Well, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Pac-12 South, Mountain West in the friggin' books here. Thanks for listening to the show. Don't forget you can find our live show if you're going to be in Chicago, August the 11th. It is the same weekend, I checked this up, as the Big Ten 10K.
5K? 10K?
10K.
Oh, I guess that would make sense. If it's the Big Ten.
Big Ten, you got to go 10.
Right. And 10K is 6 miles, right?
6-ish, yeah.
6.2 miles. And I like that the conversion, Big Ten, 14 teams, 10K, 6.2 miles. I know it's a different system. It's a different unit of length. It's the metric system. I like that there's number confusion. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Thank you for that.
No problem. I'm glad to add nothing to this conversation.
Maybe you're running in the race.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe you're looking for something to do. You're going to be in Chicago the night before because these races, they're always early.
Mm-hmm.
Come on out to the live show.
Come to the live show.
SolidVerbalTickets.com. Tickets still available. Good seats still available.
Mm-hmm.
Come on out. Meet the Verballers. Meet us.
The Rubenstein contingent at this show.
You've got a small army coming to this
My
thing.
wife is from Chicago. So if you are at all interested in being around Rubenstein, my parents are coming from LA. I don't know why this would be attractive to you, but I think you should come. I think you should come to the Chicago live show. If you're in Toledo, if you're in Madison, if you're in, Mattoon, Illinois.
Mattoon, the hometown of Will Leach.
Yeah. If you got to come out to the live show. We're going to have a great time.
If you're in Canada, drive down.
Oh my God. Canada's not that far.
It's only like a 25-hour ride from Toronto.
No, but I'm saying it's like Hamilton. What's the city, right? Regina, I believe, is right by Detroit. Canada comes down there. You can get certain parts of Canada, Chicago, in not that long.
All right.
I never thought I'd say Regina on the show, but here we are.
SolidVerbalTickets.com.
SolidVerbalTickets.com. Come hang.
Subscribe to the newsletter out on solidverbal.com, our website. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all alike. And of course, go out to the subreddit.
Subreddit r/solidverbal. We keep these conversations going. It gets even weirder. I'm now regretting. It feels like King Hippo played nose tackle for Utah. I'm regretting
that's entirely possible.
that comparison because there is
Entirely
that
possible.
island, the islands, and a lot of the recruiting for Utah. Oh well.
On that note, for that guy seated again to my left, Dan Rubenstein, for myself, Ty Hildebrand, we will catch you all in a few days. Talk some more conferences here in the build up to the 2018 season. In the meantime, stay solid.
Peace.